Hello and welcome to this video on game design documents. My name is Josephine Baird. I am a lecturer at the University of Uppsala Game Design Department. So, what is a game design document, or GDD as it is often abbreviated as, and why should you use it? Well, a game design document is a fluid document that goes along with your game design. I mean fluid as in the game design document will change and iterate. It will be amended, it'll be annotated as you go along with your game design decisions. It isn't set in stone. You don't write the document at the beginning of your process and never amend it as you go along. It changes with you. It is both a resource and a tool, a blueprint from which your game is designed, but it is also affected by your design process. As such, it is fluid and malleable, as is your game design process. A game design document can be created in a variety of ways, therefore, and it depends entirely on the nature of the game and your design process. It is most often established in the pre-production or early part of a game design phase, and it's used primarily to communicate with design team members to make sure you're all on the same literal page, but also with other interested parties. So what goes into a game design document? Well, that again depends very much on the nature of the game design itself, but they often include certain elements. For example, the name of the game, so to speak, although that of course can change as production carries on. But it'll also usually at the very beginning of the document have a project or game description, an outline of the game concept, perhaps the genre or the project scope, the general game flow and function. Think of this as an abstract or blurb for the game to give the reader who may not know your game, who's coming to your game design document for the first time, a short introduction to the overall state of your game. The game design document will often include accounts of game elements. This could be characters, narrative, environments, level design, world building, lore, themes. These are the story elements, the world elements, the narrative construction that might be features of your game. Now, all of these elements that I'm describing will, of course, intersect with each other. They're not independent of each other. But the game design document will often put these into different sections, and these are likely part of one of your sections in your game design document. A very likely section will also be a section that deals with mechanics. These are the gameplay rules, the gameplay progression, the interaction, perhaps physics, if you're doing a digital game, especially object or player interactions. Closely related to this are gameplay. This is a description of objectives, perhaps, general methods of game progression, not necessarily mechanics, but certainly that intersect with it. How does your game flow from section to section, from beginning to end? How are objectives communicated and carried out? What is the progression of your game, and how do you intend for that to flow from beginning to end? It can include graphics and styling. Obviously, in a digital game, this might include digital assets, music, but of course, in analog games and all kinds of games, art design, modeling, and interfaces may also be part of this section. Other things that can go into a GDD may be a technical description, especially if this is digital. This might include what platform your game is likely to be designed for, what engine is it being designed in. Now, this is often not a full description of all the technical aspects of your game. That is often reserved for a technical design document, but this is a short description or summary. Other technical aspects that could be included, especially in analog games, might be other technical additions to your game design. Other elements that might be included could be elements like localization, languages, accessibility. Now, I encourage that designers always consider accessibility as a central aspect of game design at the very beginning of a project. So a game design document is the perfect time to start including accessibility and how your game can be accessed in different ways by players who may have different access needs. The game design document may often also include marketing and funding strategies or business models. Your game design document, however, as a total, needs to reflect your project in both content, what is in there, but also form and format. A game design document can be as unique as your game design itself. It has to reflect what it is that you're designing, and so therefore it will come in many different formats. It can include pictorial, it can include diagrams, it can include art, assets of all kinds, especially in digital game design documents. But this is dependent entirely on your needs, and it needs to function for you. The game design document is a tool and a resource as you're designing your game. So, as I mentioned earlier, a game design document has no fixed format because of the nature of the art itself. It is dependent, therefore, on a number of factors, and you may need to emphasize and include certain elements over others depending on the nature of your design. Your game design document, as I've mentioned, will be amended as elements of the games are developed, iterated upon, and changed. And as such, your game design document is always going to be fluid and changeable as you go along. Now, the game design document may also be shaped by the audience or the stage of the production process. Now, as I mentioned, game design documents are often for internal use, for you to be able to share if you have large groups who are working on your game design, or even small teams, to make sure that they're all working towards the same objectives and goals. But you also might want to share this document with other interested parties, especially if you're in the pitch or proposal phase. You may want to show this to potential team members or collaborators. Later on, it may be more for showing what your proposal will become, or even as a document to show what your game was and what your decisions were at the time. The game design document, therefore, as I mentioned before, definitely needs to reflect your project in both content, as in what you include, and form and format. And that is dependent on what your game design is, of course, your audience, and where you are in the process. There are many game design documents that are available online for you to have a look at. Some of these are listed here. Definitely worth a look are the original and annotated design document for Deus Ex, an incredibly complex role-playing game that not only features the original game design document online, but also features people having scribbled notes in the margins. And I'm a big fan of seeing documents that are literally amended by pen and ink. It's wonderful. BioShock pitch document is very interesting. Silent Hill 2, and of course the original Grand Theft Auto are just a few examples of these that you can be finding just online by doing a simple Google search, and are very much worth the effort to have a look. These are 4 examples of very different games that have very different design documents, as they have very different focuses, very different priorities in their design elements. You can see these in these examples here. So in summary, a game design document functions for the design, documentation, and dissemination of both the game and the game design document itself. It is a resource and a tool in the design process. It is flexible to the design needs of you as the designer, but also of your project as a whole with your collaborators. A game design document provides a record and documentation of the decision-making and design principles that you had whilst making your game. As such, it is really useful, not only for the design process itself, but for the study of academics or other designers outside of the project, or for yourself to reflect on. I highly encourage documentation of the design process for your own needs, but also for those who might want to study what your decisions were as you were making your games. Combining game design documents with, for example, a design journal can be a really useful way for you to consider your own process as a designer as you develop your own art. Thank you very much for listening. My name has been Josephine Baird. I am a lecturer here at the Uppsala University Game Design Department, and I'm very keen to hear from you if you have any questions. Please do be in touch. Thank you.